tournament. How'd they do? And the Quinnipiac women's basketball team broke a streak this weekend. And we've got 3 great final roars coming up on Bobcat Breakdown. Welcome into Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Megan Maharry, alongside Eric Kerr and Mike Dalton. How are you guys doing tonight?
And not too bad, Megan. How are you making your Q30 debut today?
Yeah, Meg, it's an honor to do this show with you, a fellow women's basketball beat reporter. Also, Mike Dalton, pleasure to go with you at the desk. I'm excited for this one. Let's get into it.
Thanks, guys. I'm excited, too. Let's take a look at what went down this weekend for the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team. The men's ice hockey team defeated UConn, but came up short against Sacred Heart in the Connecticut Ice Tournament. Mike, what was the biggest flaw that you saw from this weekend?
Well, Megan, the biggest flaw I saw was honestly a lack of effort from the men's ice hockey team, which is very unusual for a Rand Pecknold Rand hockey team. He even said after the Sacred Heart game on Sunday that their play in the second period was, quote, atrocious and poor in the third period, end quote. So, I mean, I think that really speaks a lot of volumes, especially because he even went on to add that, you know, the great teams that he's been able to coach were able to go out and play 60 minutes, and you really just didn't see that for them against Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart honestly looked more like Quinnipiac than Quinnipiac did itself.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said there, Mike. I'm going to focus a little bit something more specific in terms of the defense. I think, you know, as you mentioned, that game against Sacred Heart, they allowed 4 goals in that game, 3 of those goals coming in the second period, and 2 of them coming with less than 2 minutes apart, Mike. That's just unacceptable. You got to be able to deny those passes, not lock it down, and stop the easy goals from happening. And, you know, we mentioned from this team, they have been inexperienced throughout the year, and this team, because of that inexperience, defers to more of their offensive roles rather than staying back and playing defense. So I think that was the main issue that came up in this game, their biggest flaw. And yeah, as you mentioned, just not a good performance. They got to improve that effort. It was lacking.
Plus, they just got to know when to retreat back into the D zone and when to be able to attack and see that opportunity in the neutral zone and be like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
So, Eric, with a young team this season, do you think that inexperience will be their demise?
You know, I did mention, Megan, that their inexperience has caused them to make some of their defensive issues out there. However, I don't think that will be the case, you know. Despite of that, the weekend performance against Sacred Heart and the Connecticut Ice, they have won 8 of their last 10 games, Mike. So they have been playing pretty well as of late, and we all know how experienced Rand Pecknold is as a coach. He has 525 career wins. He will find a way, with plenty of games still left in the season, mind you, he will find a way to progress these young guys, come up with a scheme that will get them to play well coming time when postseason play comes around the corner. So I'm not nervous at this point.
Yeah, to be honest, I think this is actually a terrible excuse for any team in college because every 4 years, it's a completely new team, and so many things are changing. You can't predict the future, so injuries as well also plays a factor into it. And you can coach someone to play a sport, but you can't coach how they're going to play it. You can't coach things like effort, like I just mentioned, competitiveness, the will to win. And those were all things that we really just didn't see with the men's ice hockey team. You don't have to be the most skilled team in the country, but as long as you have an entire group of guys that is going to go out onto the ice and play for a full 60 minutes, Rand Pecknold knows that the best team will give the most effort, and that's why they'll get the farthest.
Of course.
The men's ice hockey team has a game against number 1 Cornell this Friday, and it's QBSN's Game of the Week. Mike, what are some of the key aspects this team needs to do in order to get the win?
Well, Megan, this team needs to play disciplined, and by team I mean the Bobcats. Cornell is second in the ECAC hockey on the power play at 25%. However, when you look over in the penalty kill, they're the 4th worst in ECAC hockey at just 79%, which is not good at all, especially if they're the number 1 team in the country. So I think what the Bobcats need to do is they have to be able to be mentally strong. And if Cornell, for whatever reason, plays instigator for whatever happens during the course of the game, they have to know when to just walk, or in this case, skate away from it and not take a matching penalty.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you're saying. I actually got focus on one key player for Cornell here. Morgan Barron leads the team leader in points with 21, team leader in goals with 9, and also second in assists with 12 as well, Mike. So I think with that, they got to make sure to obviously limit his ability to perform out there. Now, granted, they did do that the first time they played against Cornell really well. Didn't have any goals or assists that game, which is why it was a 2-1 final score in that area. But they got to make sure they do that again, but also make sure to obviously to pay attention to detail, as you said. Focus on the offensive end, trying to find open cuts and lanes and get that over there for the open passes and goals, and also make sure to play defense.
Yeah, the only part I disagree with is, I mean, just focusing on one player, this is the number
No,
one
yeah,
team in
I'm
the
just
country,
saying limit him
Yeah.
because he's the bigger threat out there in terms
Yep.
of the points and access. But you got to keep track of everybody
Yeah,
out there.
and I see what you're saying. It's just, it's an entire team. This team
Exactly.
is stacked, and you're going to have to stop everyone.
Yeah, they're number 1 seed for a reason.
Yep.
Now we'll take a look at what happened on the court with the Quinnipiac men's basketball team. Quinnipiac won and lost a game over the weekend, but in bigger news, Rich Kelly made it into the 1,000-point club. Eric, where will Kelly stand at the end of his career in points?
All right, so Mike, I'm going to give you a little math, all right? Okay, so in his first season, Rich Kelly had 367 points. Follow that with season 2, 343 points.
Yep.
So now, season 3, he's already at 312 and has already passed the 1,000-point mark. As we all know, congratulations to Rich, well-deserved. Currently, he's averaging 17.3 points per game. So with about 12 games left in the season, you multiply 17 by 12, quick math is 204. Add all together, you get 516 for this season alone. And then maybe factor in another 17 for the playoffs. That's about 533 points. And then you add all that up for the next season. We'll say he gets about like 500 next season. That's 1,700 points. That graphic on the screen shows all the top players that have scored over 1,000 points in Quinnipiac history. Only 5 of those other players have scored over 1,700 points. So you're putting Rich Kelly at a pretty elite pass right there with just his scoring alone. So that's huge for that history right there, being able to go out there, score and get those buckets. I think he could be one of the best of all time.
Yeah, and if you couldn't tell, Eric's in the 3+1 program here at Quinnipiac. But I also broke out the old calculator, did a couple,
let's go.
Crunched a couple of numbers, and based on what I got, he's gonna finish with 1,641 points for his career, and that would be tied for 11th all time and 3rd in Division I history. And I think he's gonna go down as a top 10 scorer in program history, no matter what happens, because I mean, you look at his situation, not just, his skills and everything, but he's not a very tall point guard at all.
Mm-hmm.
He's listed as 6'1". I think that's a generous number, but he's a small guy, but he's able to thrive in the Baker Dunleavy system where he is just, controlling the ball. He's getting double teamed all the time, but that is giving him an opportunity to find someone else who's open, because when you're getting double teamed, someone's always going to be open.
And as you mentioned, Rich Kelly is a great player off of the pick and roll as well. Loves to run that high pick and roll, get himself not only open looks for his teammates for cutting down low to the basket for easy dunks, but also to use that screen to get a nice little open 3 from the step back for a 3-point shot. So that's definitely where the points add up as well. Very talented offensive player.
Yeah, and him and Seth Pinckney are definitely going to turn into a Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, LA Clippers duo come next year.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
Mike, which aspect of the team do you think has put them in the best position of success this year?
Well, Megan, I think it's got to be offense. They're one of 4 teams in the MAC that is averaging 70 points per game so far. And one thing that I noticed, Eric, during the Fairfield game, when Rich Kelly wasn't scoring, he would dribble the ball because he knew he'd be double teamed, like every other MAC team has been doing.
Yeah.
And he'd look to try and set up the open man. And if that didn't work, the remaining 4 Bobcats on the court would frequently pass the ball around and make Fairfield have to run around and work. Now, granted, the Stags did a really good job of defending them at 3-point range, which is why they got off to such a slow start. But then eventually they got tired and they really just ran out of gas at the end of the second half, and that's why the Bobcats were able to beat them so handedly.
Mike, I couldn't agree with you more. I think their offense has definitely been the most impressive bright spot this year. In terms of their 4-out-1 in motion that they run, typically that's where they have 4 guys in the perimeter, as we've been talking about. 1 guy setting high screens up top and setting that pick and roll for them to get those open looks. Also, you mentioned their passing has been really good when Rich Kelly's been able to win doubled and other guys have had to pass the ball around. Their assist total has been up from last year. 13.8 assists per game compared to 12.7 assists per game from last season. So that's definitely been a higher point for them. So you have to look at this team and realize that they don't have that major superstar scorer like they did with Cameron Young last year, but they found that rhythm, that new style through their motion offense, being able to cut, pass, set screens for each other, and move it around. It's just tremendous to watch. I enjoy it a lot.
Quinnipiac currently sits at 3rd place in the MAC standings. Eric, do you think the Bobcats will finish their season over or under their preseason ranking of 3?
Well, Megan, I think they're going to finish over that 3 spot. The reason being is because, they've already been one of the only team that's ahead of them actually in Monmouth. So they have the capability to go out there and play hard in any game that they can. Their win at home is really good. So as long as they keep that up, I don't see them having any problems because you got to have a good home record in the MAC to be able to get towards that top spot in the conference. Besides Quinnipiac, Monmouth and Siena are the only teams that have a perfect record at home. So that's already in a good spot for them. Obviously, Monmouth is in the top spot. But the funny thing with Siena is that they're perfect at home, 9-0, but they're 0 for 9 on the road. That's like all games this season.
That is so weird.
This is very weird. So as long as they just keep winning at home and take care of business with as much as they can in the road games, I don't see why they can't be in the top 3.
Yeah, that 9-0, 0-9, that's almost like a football team there. But yeah, I can agree with you, Eric. I think they're going to finish over. They've already beaten Monmouth, Ryder, and Fairfield. There's 3 of the top 6 teams like you just saw in that graphic. And also, they lost to Manhattan and Siena, but they're going to have another chance to face them later on in the season at home. They're 7-2 at home, and I think they'll have a much better shot at beating them. And that's all I got. I think that this team can definitely go on a really long run, so long as their offense just keeps ticking.
Mike, Eric, some really great discussions so far, and that brings us into our first break. But coming up on Bobcat Breakdown, we'll hear from Joe LaGrippo up at the People's United Center, and we'll also take a look at the women's basketball's biggest win of the season so far.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Julia, are you ready to play band with us? I'm gonna play my clarinet.
And Elmo's gonna play his drum. Drum loud.
Oh, well, you know what to do, Julia.
Julia knows.
Mm-hmm. With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music. Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
Joe LaGrippo with us, reporting live from the People's United Center. Joe, how'd it go up there tonight?
Thanks, guys. Losing to Princeton has become sort of a streak for Quinnipiac, as they're now 2-8 since February of 2017, as they dropped today's game 3-2 against the Tigers. They started off really slow. Abby Ives gave up 3 goals in the first period, but in the second and third period, she was basically a brick wall. Absolutely outstanding, robbed the breakaway goal. And I asked head coach Cass Turner after the game about her thoughts on Ives' ability to rebound during the game. And she said it's basically a testament to her character. She doesn't roll over if bad things happen. She always believes in herself, and she was able to single-handedly keep Quinnipiac in the game today. And speaking of her teammates, on the offensive side of the puck, they stalled out for 2.5 periods. It was late in the third period where they were able to get on the board. They scored 2 goals. 1 goal was with 0.3 seconds left in the game, so it was kind of a too little, too late situation. But it was a hard-fought game for Quinnipiac. They'll face Brown next. They dropped today's game 3-2. Back to you guys.
Joining us in that insight. Now, based on tonight's results, Eric, does this Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team deserve to be ranked?
Well, after this game and after the other games that happened this season, I don't think they deserve to be ranked, Mike. I think they just don't have enough quality wins. Overall record of 13-9-3 with an under 500 conference record, shaky 5-6-2. And their record against ranked opponents is not impressive at all, 2-5-1. If you want to get that ranked spot, you have to beat those tougher opponents, and they don't have enough of those quality wins. So I just don't think they have the resume yet to be able to get that spot. Now, granted, they have been playing better hockey as of late, but if they want to get in that ranked spot, it doesn't take away from them being a bad team or anything. I just don't think that with the resume they have right now, they shouldn't be a ranked team.
Yeah, honestly, my opinion was going to depend on tonight's Princeton game, and now that we officially know that the Tigers beat the Bobcats by a score of 3-2, I do not think that the Bobcats should be ranked as well. And I even wrote an article for Q30 Sports over winter break on why I thought they should be ranked in the USCHO.com poll. But now things have changed. They, like you said, 2-6-1 against top 10 opponents. And especially in a league where 4 other teams are top 10 teams already, that's hard enough. And they're just not beating those teams that they need to beat. Losing to Ohio State twice, it doesn't really affect them that much because they're not in conference. So that, to me, you kind of just forget about that. But a loss to Princeton, that's definitely going to hurt because now you're in a deeper hole because they're on the outside looking in right now in the playoffs. Top 6 teams make it, and Quinnipiac is 8th, as you can see on that graphic. Yeah,
they got to be able to do better, try to win those games towards the end of the conference, and maybe if they make a deep ECAC playoff run, then they could be back in the tournament, but we'll see.
Yep. Senior goaltender Abby Ives has been playing well all season, and she had another great game tonight. Mike, do you think she can keep her strong play throughout the rest of the season?
Absolutely. I think she's already kept a very elite level of goaltending throughout the season, and that really showed, especially over winter break. I was able to attend the Harvard and Dartmouth games, and I mean, she was just playing out of her skates. She made 2 sprawling cross-crease glove saves against Dartmouth alone, and those were 2 of probably the greatest saves by a goaltender I've ever seen from any team, regardless of whether it was at the professional or Division I level or even the high school junior hockey league level. I mean, she has just been playing tremendously, and it really shows that she has a bunch of experience playing against ECAC hockey teams, so she is used to the workload. She's made 21 of the Bobcats' 25 potential starts, and she is top 5 in save percentage, saves, and win percentage as well. She's got 10 wins already this year, so I think that she's going to keep this going.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said. Again, she's had over 20 saves in 3 of her past 4 games, so she's been hot, and she has that experience as a third-year starter where she can keep that going, and as you mentioned, the skill with her ability to be able to dive and get in front of the puck and make those big saves whenever she needs to, and get defensive stops for her team when they may not be able to stop it themselves in the defensive end. So yeah, I think she could definitely just take this into postseason, keep performing well, and they could ride off the energy off her goaltending.
The only big question, though, is can her offense back up her play, and that's been a real issue all season long.
Back on the court, the Quinnipiac women's basketball team went 1-for-1 in their last 2 games. Eric, what gives this team a chance to win after not having the team they've had in the past couple years?
Well, I think in terms of this year's, with the losing a lot of those senior players from last season, I think that what they've done is with their new lineup, it's been real. It's been really good for this team this year. They started out the season with, I'll read off the starting lineup for you. I actually have it in front of me. So they started out the year with Shaq Edwards, Taylor Hurd, Sajeda Bonner, Michaela Morris, and Paige Warfel. They swap out Sajeda Bonner and Michaela Morris, and you put in Mackenzie DeWeese and Kurtiera Haywood in there. What do they bring you? Well, DeWeese brings you that big defensive energy out there. She's in your face all the time, hard on-ball defender, and a huge energy player for this team too. You know, a lot of times when I was, as women's basketball Peter Port, I was in a lot of the press conferences, and one of the things that Mackenzie always preached is she said, you know, you have to give 110% energy, always getting hyped up for every play, and you can see that she backs that talk with just how hyped she gets, not only for herself every time she makes a big play, but when her teammates make a big play, she is just always getting energetic and hyped up out there, really excited for all that stuff for her teammates, what they're doing. And also, she's just a great second ball handler for Shaq as well. Whenever she needs a little stress the kid off the ball, maybe look for more scoring opportunities, DeWeese can bring it up for them and have that second option in terms of the backcourt. And also for Kurtiera Haywood's case, you know, she has the ability to be able to stretch it out from behind the arc, knock down that three as a forward, a 6'2" forward, but also can guard the 1 through 4 position because of her size. So she's just a great, solid player for the team, and those lineup changes are big for the team. Now, no discredit at all to Sajeda Bonner and Michaela Morris. They're tremendous players in their own right.
Yeah,
but
Michaela Morris is having an unreal
like
first
Michaela
year.
Morris with her ability to score down the low post, averaging those numbers that she's been doing in the points per game area, but also with Sajeda Bonner with the ability to knock down the three. They're solid pieces to come off the bench for this team. It's just that with these starters out there, they're able to create a whole new dynamic in terms of more playmaking, more spacing on the floor with Haywood, and a lot better offensive consistency. So that's been the big thing for this team. And with that lineup change, they keep moving forward with this. You know, they've been hot as of late, winning 4 of the last 5 games. They can keep this up. I think they could have another deep run in the SMAC tournament.
Yeah, and honestly, when we started off the show, we talked about men's ice hockey, and I brought up, you know, their lack of effort against Sacred Heart this past Sunday. For women's basketball, it's honestly the opposite. Their compete level is just out of this world. Even though they're 8-9, 6 of those losses have come against non-conference opponents. So they've only had 3 conference losses, and honestly, it feels like a down year because they haven't had 3 conference losses since their 2016-17 season when they actually made it to the Sweet 16. But their expectations are so sky high that their down season is most MAC opponents' dream come true. I mean, they're not out of it at all, you know?
No,
and I think
5-3 is not a bad record.
Yeah, Shaq Edwards said it perfectly after the Fairfield game. She used what Tom Brady said before Super Bowl 53. We're still here. We are still elite. We can compete with anybody, and we can take down anyone we want at any given moment. And with Trisha Fabry, she's able to do that. She is able to keep her team focused. And when this team gets on a winning streak, I mean, they get so hot, it's honestly a fire hazard every time they enter any given arena.
Yeah, and also, Mike, this team still has the experience. Like, you know, don't forget about Taylor Hurd, Mackenzie DeWeese, Paige Warfel. These players have all been in the MAC championship before. No one else in the MAC, has won a MAC championship. Nobody else in the MAC has won a MAC championship yet besides these players in Quinnipiac. So they still have that experience so they can go out there and, you know how to win a game in a big moment like that and get it done.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't really like to use the experience as an excuse. I mean, I understand
don't think that, but it's a valid point to still use that.
It is, but I just don't think it's that realistic because everybody has growing to do. I mean, look at Michaela Morris. She's playing like she's a junior this year, and she's his first year. So.
Yes.
In what players called a statement win, Quinnipiac did snap Fairfield's perfect conference record of 6-0 with a win of 76-62. Mike, do you see this as a turning point for the Bobcats?
Honestly, I know this is probably a little bit of a hot take, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bobcats went undefeated through conference play for the rest of the season. This is a team, like I just said, when they get hot, they are a fire hazard every time they enter any given arena. I mean, they can just pour it on you, whether it's a 3 from Kurtiera Haywood, like we're just seeing right now, or Mackenzie DeWeese driving to the basket. Paige Warfel is a great 2-way player. And Trisha Fabry, she also knows how to get her team and her players mentally prepared, especially if they go on a long streak of 20-some-odd wins, which they've done several times.
Do you think this is a turning point game for you?
I think this is a turning point because this is going to be, I think they finally found think they finally got kind of their swagger back a little bit, honestly. You know, they're walking around with their heads held higher a little more. They know that, you know, I think with the Fairfield win, undefeated in conference play, they realize they can do it. And especially when Shaq Edwards was out, that was a huge loss for them. And with her back, they're so much better.
I agree with everything you're saying, Mike. That Fairfield game was definitely a big one, and all the players have said it. But in my mind, I see the Q versus Canisius game as more of a major turning point, especially with the passing of Taylor Hurd's dad. You know, that lights a fire in a team. With something like so sad and so traumatic at that, it lights the fire in the squad. You know, especially happening to someone like Taylor Hurd, who's the captain of the team, who's the starter. Everyone looks up to her, and her impact as a leader in this roster is so strong that it definitely lit a fuse in these girls to go out and get this big win, as you see, 74-71 on your screen. And, you know, with those kind of wins, those really set the tone for the season, because you can come through this game, through the adversity, come out on top, and everyone just like plays with our heart for it, then that's pretty huge. I don't care if you're beating a best team in the conference, that's still a big game.
It's time for our break, but coming up, we have our final roars that you won't want to miss. Stay tuned.
Get it.
Get it.
Get it.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
There are amazing things to discover in the forest.
Toothless, time to go! What you picking up on, bud?
It's a whole hidden world of wonders. And the perfect place to spend time with family. What better place to let your imagination soar? Experience nature and create a memory you can share. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest or park near you.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. It's time for our final roars.
Okay, this may be the hottest take of the night, but I mean it when I say that Rich Kelly is the better Quinnipiac basketball player than last year's scoring superstar, Cameron Young. Sure, Young may hold the last year's single game scoring record with 55 points with an average just greater than 23 points per game, but this only makes him a better scorer over Kelly. In his 3 seasons with the Bobcats, Kelly has averaged around 14 points per game with 4.5 assists per game. This season, he leads the team in scoring with a little more than 17 points per game, and he has led the team in assists all 3 years he's been on the roster. He can do all the things Cameron Young was able to do in offense. Hitting a step-back three-pointer, check. Using the pick and roll to drive and kick, check. 1,000-point scorer, well, check on that too. When all is said and done, the stats, his game, and milestones prove that Rich Kelly is the better basketball player. And with more games left in this season and his senior season still ahead, Kelly has a chance to become a Quinnipiac basketball legend.
Last night on Sports Pause, I said that my biggest concern with the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team was offense. And tonight's game only proves my point, as the Bobcats fell 3-2 after. And after the Dartmouth game, I wrote an article for Q30 Sports explaining why I thought the Bobcats should be ranked in the USCHO.com poll. Do I still think this team has a chance to be ranked a top 10 team by the end of the season? I do. However, I don't believe they should be ranked right now. There are 4 ECAC hockey teams that have been ranked in the USCHO poll for several weeks now, and the Bobcats have only been able to beat one of those 4 teams. And including tonight's loss to the Tigers, the Bobcats have a record of 2-6-1 against ranked opponents this year. The Bobcats may have one of the best defensive-minded teams in the country and solid special teams units, but they don't have a lethal offense that lacks the ability to score at any given time. Therefore, the Bobcats won't be a ranked opponent until their offense can put some more pucks in the back of the net.
My player to watch is women's basketball player Curtiera Haywood. The first year has already had a solid start in her career as a Bobcat, averaging just over 8 points a game. She shot from 50% from the floor and has made 20 of her 44 three-point attempts, and no rookie has ever shot over 40% from 3 without at least 40 attempts. And just last week, Haywood earned MAC Rookie of the Year. Now, she's played in every game so far for the Bobcats and has been a starter in many of the games. I think her role on the team will be increasingly important throughout the season, as it is a very young Bobcat team. It will be exciting to continually watch her develop into an offensive threat throughout the season. And that does it for our show tonight. For more updates on all Quinnipiac sports, check out Q30TV.com or follow at Q30 Sports on Twitter. Alongside Eric Kerr and Mike Dalton at the desk, I'm Megan Maharry. Same time next week, Bobcats.